It was 7:15 in the morning in River North, Chicago. The coffee in my hand was hot, but my condo felt cold. Quiet, polished, expensive. Exactly how I liked it. Then the buzzer rang. Not a friend. A process server. I signed, closed the door, and tore open the envelope right there in the foyer. One glance at the header and everything stopped. Filial responsibility support. My parents, Gary and Susan, were suing me. Not asking for help. Suing. They claimed they were broke and needed monthly support. The reason? My sister Gabriella's divorce was draining them. So now they wanted me to pay for it. Pay for her mistakes. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the papers. I froze. Then I moved on. Panic is inefficient. I don't do inefficient. I sat at my glass dining table and switched into analysis mode. The lawsuit claimed I had made some kind of verbal agreement, that I owed them support in return for raising me. Food, shelter, clothes. They were trying to bill me for my childhood. According to them, my refusal to sell my condo to fund their legal mess was a breach of that imaginary contract. It wasn't just a demand, it was a full-scale attack on my future, launched by the very people who were supposed to protect me. Most daughters would call their mother, crying, asking why. I opened my laptop. My parents had always been useless with technology. Years ago they made me the admin of the family cloud because they couldn't keep track of passwords. They forgot I still had access. I logged in. I didn't scroll. I acted. 5 years of tax returns. Credit card statements. Bank transfers. I downloaded everything. Every receipt, every transaction, every detail of how they spent their money. Then I changed the passwords. Locked them out completely. I leaned back and looked around my living room. To them, this place was just an asset. Something to sell, something to cash out. But to me, this wasn't real estate. It was a fortress. I walked to the wall and pressed my hand against it. Pulled, thawed, burned. This wasn't drywall and paint. This was rice and beans. For 4 years, that's all I ate. While Gabriella got spray tans and a medical nose job at 16, I was walking through snow to save bus fare. While they spent thousands on her pageants hoping she'd marry rich, I was saving every dollar like my life depended on it. Because it did. Every inch of this condo was something I gave up. Every corner was a sacrifice. Missed trips. Skipped nights out. Saying no when I wanted to say yes. I built this silence. I bought this peace. This was the only place where no one could tell me I wasn't enough. Where I wasn't too boring. Where I didn't exist just to serve the family image. This wasn't just a home. It was proof I survived. Selling it wouldn't just cost money. It would cost everything. It would mean tearing down the only safe place I'd ever had, just to rescue the people who left me out in the cold. I looked back at the files on my screen. They wanted a war over money. Fine. But they forgot one thing. I'm a risk analyst. And they're a liability I'm ready to eliminate. The next evening I drove out to Naperville. They called it a settlement meeting. I called it reconnaissance. Their house was exactly how I remembered. Big colonial, perfect lawn, and a driveway lined with leased luxury cars. From the outside, it looked like the American dream. I knew better. It was a house of cards. The moment I stepped into the living room, it felt staged, too perfect, too polished. My mother, Susan, sat there in a cashmere cardigan that probably cost more than my first car. My father, Gary, poured scotch into crystal glasses like he was hosting a celebration. And Gabriella, the golden child, was curled on the white sofa, crying into a silk handkerchief. She looked up as I walked in. Her eyes were red, perfectly so. Her makeup, still flawless. "Alexis," she said softly, sniffling. "Thank God you're here. We can fix this." My father didn't offer me a drink. He pointed to a stiff chair in the corner. "Sit," he said. "Let's not make this harder than it has to be." I sat, my purse resting on my lap like armor. I expected an apology. Maybe even a weak excuse. Something that sounded like regret. I got none. My mother folded her hands and gave me that tight smile, the one she used when she was about to demand something she believed she deserved. "We understand the lawsuit may seem aggressive," she said calmly. "But you need to understand how serious this is. Blake is enforcing the prenup. He's trying to leave Gabriella with nothing. If she doesn't have top legal representation, the family brand will suffer. The family brand. Not Gabriella. Not her well-being. The image. We can't have her living in some rental," she added. What would people think? I stared at her. And you want me to sell my home for that? I asked, my voice flat. My father sighed like I was being difficult on purpose. It's not about that, he said. It's strategy. You have equity. We need liquidity. It's temporary. Once Gabriella gets her settlement, we'll pay you back. With interest. I glanced at Gabriella. She wasn't even looking at me anymore. She was scrolling on her phone, probably checking comments on whatever sad post she just uploaded. And that's when it hit me. Not slowly. Not gently. All at once. I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup plan. For years I wondered why I was the responsible one. Why I was pushed into finance while Gabriella chased attention. Why they praised my discipline but mocked everything else about me. They weren't raising me. They were preparing me. Preparing a safety net. They knew Gabriella was a risk. They knew their lifestyle didn't hold up. So they built me into something stable. Quiet, dependable, always there when things fell apart. I wasn't seen. I was stored. I'm not selling, I said. The room went cold. My mother's smile disappeared. You're selfish, she snapped. We gave you everything. You owe us. Standing up felt heavy, like pushing against something invisible. But I did. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just looked at them, 3 people acting out a crisis in a house they couldn't afford, and turned toward the door. I closed it gently behind me. Outside, the air in Naperville was freezing, but for the first time it didn't bother me. It felt clear. The drive back to the city was silent except for my phone buzzing nonstop. Messages from my mother. Guilt, anger, threats, talk of family and loyalty. I put it on Do Not Disturb. I had work to do. I hired a lawyer, Reynolds. Sharp suit. Sharper mind. He filed a motion to dismiss right away. But that wasn't the real fight. The real work happened at my dining table. For 3 nights I didn't sleep. I went through everything I had pulled from their accounts. Every statement, every transfer, every transaction. It was chaos. Leased cars they couldn't afford. Luxury vacations on maxed-out credit cards. Business expenses that were really country club fees and spa days. Then I found it. The piece that changed everything. This wasn't just bad spending. It was theft. My parents were trustees for my grandmother's estate. Money meant for all the grandchildren's education. The account was empty. Not spent on tuition. Transferred. Into a shell company. Owned by Gabriella. They had been funneling money into her image. Buying followers, funding trips, building a fake life so she could look successful enough to marry rich. They weren't broke. They were exposed. Bankrupt, yes, but only because they had burned through money that wasn't theirs. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the laptop lighting the room. I didn't feel angry anymore. Just certain. They didn't sue me because they needed help. They sued me because they ran out of options. And they needed one more source before everything collapsed. I opened a new document. And started writing the report. It was 30 pages long. Charts, timelines, clean lines of proof that couldn't be argued away. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was building a cage. Outside, the wind slammed against the windows, rattling the glass of my condo. Winter had settled over Chicago. Sharp, relentless, unforgiving. It felt appropriate. I held the printed report in my hands, the pages still warm. Everything was ready. The professional part was done. Now I just needed the right moment to strike. Reynolds called on Thursday. Something in his voice had changed. Less polished, more urgent. Alexis, we need to talk. I've received discovery from Blake's legal team. I set my coffee down. What is it? Did they find the shell company? No, he said. It's worse. Or better. Depends how you look at it. Pause. Blake isn't just enforcing the prenup because of a divorce. He's invoking the morality clause. Specifically, paternity fraud. My hand stopped midair. Paternity fraud. Gabriella is pregnant, he continued. And the test Blake's lawyers subpoenaed confirms the child isn't his. The silence that followed was heavy. Then whose is it? I asked quietly, even though something in my gut already knew. Logan, Reynolds said. Blake's younger brother. I stared at the window, but I didn't see the city anymore. Logan. The brother with a history. The one who had been dragged out of trouble more times than anyone could count. The one whose attention toward Gabriella had always lingered just a second too long. It wasn't just scandal. It was destruction. A betrayal that would tear through one of the most powerful families in the city and leave nothing intact. My parents knew. That realization snapped everything into place. The urgency. The lawsuit. Their sudden poverty. This was never about survival. It was about silence. They needed money, fast. Not to live but to bury the truth. To move Gabriella somewhere quiet. To pay people off. To contain the fallout before it detonated in public. And to do that they were willing to burn me. My home. My future. My security. All of it. Just collateral damage. A slow, cold anger settled into something sharper. Cleaner. They hadn't just been selfish. They had tried to make me part of it. Send me everything, I told Reynolds. All the documents. The test results. The prenup. The clause. I hung up and stood by the window watching the city move like nothing had changed. For years I tried to be enough for them. Now I understood. I had always been exactly what they needed. Not a daughter. A sacrifice. But they made one mistake. The sacrifice kept records. And I wasn't going down alone. The deposition room smelled like stale coffee and furniture polish. No windows. No distractions. Just a table and the truth waiting to be pulled out of people who didn't want to give it. I sat beside Reynolds, hands folded, calm. Across from me my parents looked confident, almost relaxed. They had dressed the part well. My mother in muted gray, composed and dignified. My father slightly hunched, playing frail. Victims. Their lawyer launched into a speech about family, duty, sacrifice. About how I had benefited from their care for 18 years and was now refusing to return that support. Moral obligation. Abandonment. He spoke like it was a tragedy. My father nodded along, looking at me like I had disappointed him. Like I was still a child who needed correction. They really believed this would work. That they could shame me into giving in. That I still operated on the same rules they raised me with. They didn't realize something had changed. Shame only works if you accept it. And I stopped accepting it a long time ago. Reynolds didn't interrupt. He let them finish. When the room finally fell silent, he didn't move. He just looked at me. My turn. I didn't stand. Didn't raise my voice. I reached into my bag and pulled out 2 manila envelopes. I slid the first one across the table. Stopped right in front of my father. That, I said calmly, is a forensic audit of the family trust. No emotion. No hesitation. It documents 342 transactions over 5 years. It shows exactly how you drained Grandma's estate. Money legally meant for education, and funneled it into a shell company under Gabriella's name. I let that sit for a second. It also traces where that money went. The Porsche lease. Cabo trips. Paid followers. Manufactured influence. I met his eyes. You're not broke, Gary. Pause. You're exposed. You're not just broke, I said evenly. You're bankrupt because you stole from your own future to manufacture an illusion. The color drained from my father's face in seconds. He opened his mouth but nothing came out. His lawyer snatched the report, flipping through page after page, confidence dissolving with every line. But I wasn't finished. I slid the second envelope across the table, this one stopping in front of my mother. And this, I said, is why Blake is tearing everything down. Her hand hovered over it, trembling. She didn't touch it. She didn't need to. She already knew. Open it, I said. She couldn't. She just stared at me, fear rising in her eyes like something finally breaking through. So I said it for her. It's the paternity test. From the divorce discovery. Gabriella's baby isn't her husband's. I let the silence stretch. It's Logan's. The room went dead. Not quiet, empty. Like the air had been pulled out completely. Their lawyer stopped reading. Slowly he looked from them, to me, then back again. The realization hit him all at once. This wasn't a support case. It was a detonation. You didn't sue me because you needed help, I continued. You sued me because you needed silence. You needed money to contain this. To move her. To pay people off before the truth surfaced. I leaned forward slightly. You were ready to liquidate my life, my home, my future, to bury a scandal you created. My mother broke first. Not the controlled tears she used in public. This was raw, uneven, desperate. We had to protect her, she cried. She's your sister. This will destroy her. If this gets out, we lose everything. Our friends, our reputation, everything. Please, you can't do this. I looked at her. Then at my father, who couldn't even lift his head anymore. They were begging now. Waiting for me to step back into the role they built for me. The one who fixes things. The one who sacrifices. The one who disappears so Gabriella can shine. If you continue this lawsuit, I said calmly, I will submit both of these files into public record. Every transaction. Every transfer. And the reason behind your so-called financial hardship. I let the words land. Or, you drop the case. With prejudice. And sign a non-contact order. My mother reached for me, her hand shaking. Alexis, please, we did this for the family. We love you. I stood, smoothed my skirt, and met her eyes. No, I said. You loved what I could do for you. Pause. But you made a mistake. I picked up my bag. You chose the wrong daughter to sacrifice. I walked to the door. Didn't look back. Behind me, her voice cracked, calling my name, but it sounded distant, hollow. Like something already gone. I stepped into the hallway. And for the first time in a long time I could breathe. 72 hours later it was over. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. The non-contact order was signed without argument. They didn't have leverage anymore. Only consequences. Everything that followed moved fast. Predictable. Clinical. The house in Naperville went on the market within a week. Sold quickly. Quietly. They downsized to a small rental near the airport. Far from the life they had spent years pretending to belong to. Gabriella's divorce closed just as fast. Blake didn't negotiate. She walked away with nothing but her clothes, and the truth she couldn't hide. Now they lived together. 3 people in a space too small for their egos, blaming everything but themselves. I don't check on them. I don't need to. They're closed accounts. Written off. That Friday night I sat in my condo. Quiet. The wind off the lake pressed against the glass, but inside, everything was still. Safe. I opened my laptop one last time. Pulled up the ledger I had carried for years. The mental record of every slight, every dismissal, every moment I was made invisible. For a long time I thought walking away meant losing. That family was something you couldn't abandon no matter the cost. I was wrong. Some ties aren't bonds. They're drains. And cutting them off isn't cruelty. It's survival. I wasn't walking away from them. I was saving myself. I highlighted the entire file. Pressed delete. Gone. Balance. 0. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. The city stretched out in front of me, lights glowing like quiet defiance against the dark. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't the one they could use. I was solid. I was untouchable. And for the first time in my life, I was free. If you've ever had to build your own safety just to survive the people who were supposed to protect you, you understand this story. And if you've ever been the one they overlooked, the one they thought would always stay quiet, just remember, you don't have to break just because they never saw you.